This journey that you're evolving through is one that you're supposed to be on. So don't worry about a thing. Everything will be all right. Just breathe. My parents moved from India in 1969 to Canada with the hopes of creating a better lifestyle for our family. Where we grew up was a place called Pushlands, just by Aberfoyle, isolated up till about 3 years old. Then we moved to Guelph. And Guelph is a predominantly white community. In that place, I was always fighting between kind of the reality of my home life, participating in rituals at the temple and these sorts of things. And then I go to school and it's, again, pretty much all white. I'm struggling with that question of like, who am I and what am I here for and why am I learning these things and why am I in this situation and how come people don't look the same way as me? How come when I go home and I'm watching television, you know, it's different, like I'm not seeing myself on television? How come when my mom gives me food to take to school, I don't want to take it there because it might smell a certain way and no one else is eating that, they're all eating peanut butter and jam sandwiches and I just want peanut butter and jams. You know, I'm thinking all these things, but I don't really have the outlet for that. We had the opportunity to go to Curacao. I was 15 years old. I was the high school photographer. When I found out that we were gonna go to Curacao, I was never supposed to take the SLR, but you know, I took it home one night and just was sick the next day and then ended up in Curacao. So I had this camera with me and at the time it was the carnival. It's such a brilliant celebration of culture and self-expression and identity and rich roots that I wanted to document this. So I just jumped the fence and I got right up in the parade. And because I had the camera, no one questioned me. I got a whole different experience by taking these pictures. And when I was taking these pictures, I was starting to realize, you know, I didn't really learn too much about this story or this expression or this feeling or vibration or energy in my geography class or my history class or any of these things. And I started to say, you know, I need to take these pictures, right? And a responsibility to take it back home and to share it with other people and say, this is what's going on in our world, you know? Tying all of that together, I realized the power of photography. And in that space, I started to realize I really want to learn more about myself and who I am and celebrating this rich cultural history. But what is my cultural history and how does that fit into my story? So I went to India for the first time with my sisters again and went traveling. And at that point really started to connect with family there and started to realize, okay, this is my mom's sister, this is my dad's aunt, you know, and starting to realize the breadth and lineage that I come from. In my earlier photographs, you still see me as a bit of an outsider and still trying to understand my role within India and who I am as an Indian. So these are early innocent images of my first encounter in India. As an Indian boy, I was to take over my family's business. We have a family footwear store. You know, looking back at that time, I realized that that might not be my journey. I was really kind of on my own, I felt, in that way, and I left and I moved to Toronto. I was able to get an entrance scholarship into Ryerson, and I started to realize very quickly that I felt more comfortable. You know, I started to see a lot more people that looked like me. I started to hear people that were having conversations that were going on in my head. I started to get invited to events that had the kind of vibration that resonated with me and that I felt natural within. And then I started to surround myself with an artistic community, both at school, because I was surrounded by all of these filmmakers. I was in the School of Image Arts at Ryerson, so I had all of these photographers around me. They were talking about artistic statements and development of theses and like, what are they gonna say in their work? So this was stimulating my mind. And at the same time, I started to get invited to hip hop events. I start to see all these young people, my age and younger and a little bit older, getting down to like some of the funkiest beats I've heard and using their body as a form of expression and like communicating all sorts of messages and energy between this kind of peaceful battle mode. It was such a brilliant space to be in, and I saw the power that was existing within that sphere. And I said, okay, yo, I'm down with this movement, strong right now. Like the hip hop movement is touching me at my innermost core. So a lot of people started to see me at these events with my camera and saying, hey, can you shoot this? Can you shoot that? And then I started to say, can you come to my studio? So people started to come into the studio and I started to photograph them and try to tell their stories. So quickly I became someone that people knew that I was a documentarian within this movement. I met this guy named Jose Rodriguez at one photo shoot that I was doing, and he told me that he was the lead booker and talent rep at the government nightclub. So we had a conversation and he's like, I like your vibe, I like your energy, can you come out and shoot some of my events? okay, yeah, let's do it. I didn't tell him that I was 17. So from 17, I'm starting to go to all these events. I'm shooting on stage, behind the scenes. I'm chilling with some of the top DJs in our world, getting intimate portraits with them. So my whole mindset and methodology at that point was, you know, put out the right energy, walk with confidence, know that it can happen, and just do it. One of the first big shoots that I got to do was with Common. So the photographer's there, he's like moving Common and like this arm this way, and the vibe just was so off in that photo set. So then Common was like taking a break, and says he's gonna go get some water. So as he walked by, I was like, hey, you know, I'm the art director on this shoot, and I'm also a portrait photographer from Toronto, so I was wondering for my portfolio if I could take a couple shots. I got this little white background set up. He's like, yeah, I like your vibe, of course. After the shoot, we'll do a couple shots. So I'm like, yes, we got it. I'm gonna shoot Common. This is like my first like venture into shooting kind of the prolific messengers of our time. Go home back to Toronto, start to edit these photos, send them over to the magazine, just being like, thanks for having me. It ends up that the magazine uses my shot on the cover and about 4 other shots inside. I got to photograph a lot more artists through their platform and a few other magazines in the city. For me, there's a multitude of reasons why I want to do this. Document these really important messengers of our time. If you start to put these images out into the world, your voice becomes more recognized. We have the platform then to say important things and become messengers ourselves as well. As I start to document these people, I'm starting to build a really strong base, and I got so much work done in that 2 years, and then I started to go into my community organizing work. Right now I'm heavily involved with community organizing, community mobilizing through a hip hop platform. We're putting forth the message that culture, young people, community programs, and creativity is important. Because there's a lot of miseducation about many of the cultures that we are a part of, right? So a lot of people look at young people of color in a certain light. They look at hip hop in a certain light. They look at hip hop as violent, misogynistic. They look at hip hop as bling and commercialization, which yes, there are those elements of it, but we have to recognize where do those come from, right? What is the root of those? How has this culture been commodified? Because hip hop, and from a lot of the pioneers in the culture, explain hip hop, hip is to know and hop is to move. So hip hop being a knowledge movement. So we wanted to always say, how do we bring it back to that essence and to spread love, positivity, unity, respect, justice? You know, how do we reframe these things, and how do we reframe it so that we realize that local culture is important, and we don't need to look outside of ourselves and look at what's going on MTV or Much Music and say, that is what this culture is. No, what's going on in your own community? The first thing that we did was we held this big town hall meeting at City Hall, and we brought everyone together, and we said to everyone, this is what we want to see happen. We want to try and unify all of our efforts and build a platform that can support and amplify all of our voices. From there, the meetings went from 20 to 40, 40 to 75, 75 to 125 to the first festival happening in 2007, like the same year. We announced it without even having any funding, no real plan, but we just knew that we had this passion, drive, love, and spirit to make something happen. That was one of the most beautiful times in my life because we were giving birth to something amazing, but it was also one of the most challenging times in my life. I actually went through a deep depression at that time. That time in my life is actually a really sacred time because it actually it made me stop and really consider, how am I going to move through this? It started to drive me deeper into my own journey in this kind of place that I'm in right now, and figuring out, okay, what is my role now within this movement? Manifesto has grown infinitely and immeasurably. It's grown internationally. It's grown, and it's continued to kind of evolve in its own unique way. I've come to the realization that life is just made up of a billion deep breaths, and that's why I always think to be happy, smile, and breathe deeply.